Welcome to Becoming More. Now, if you are somebody that wants to build a great relationship, whether it be in your marriage or as a leader, if you've been thinking that maybe leadership is a little bit different right now than it's ever been before with AI and everything hitting the world, well, you're on the right podcast. Because Traci Morrow has realized that leadership is changing, and she is helping top leaders around the globe, not just in the United States, around the globe. Traci, you built this great international company and you have 6 kids. So come on, let's talk a little bit about how have you done that? Because we've got a lot of women that listen to this show and 6 children, and you're building this international company.
Well, I think it has to do with knowing boundaries and having my priorities in place. And I think that's
Mm.
where that's how I was able to do it and how I'm able to show other men and women how to do it as well, is when you know your priorities, you're able to put tight boundaries around that. And then it's really like it's what can you do within the time that you've given yourself to build?
You know, do values come into that? Because I'm starting to hear some of that. You have to know your values to set the boundaries.
Absolutely. I mean, that's all about your priorities, right? Building your priorities around what your values are. And so that's even digging a little bit deeper of foundation of before you build into what are my priorities and what do I want to build around is who am I and what are the foundations of what I'm going to build my life around. And so helping people find out what that is, first I need to know what that is myself so that I can lead and help somebody else to know how to do that. You've seen this, Dianna, so many times we've been in big rooms with big leaders, and they have built incredible or saved incredible companies, incredible brands, names everybody would know who's listening to this podcast. And when you just scratch below the surface, the priorities and the values are off. And so
Mm.
it's interesting to me that you can have wild success, global wild success, but yet not have success in the things that really define who you are as a human being.
Well, earlier you and I, we were on Riverside, and we just couldn't get the audio to match up with the video. And it was so annoying, if I may use
Yes.
that word. And it was the interesting part is it reminded me of some leaders. Their
Hmm.
audio doesn't match their video. They're
Right there.
talking one game and showing up as
Hmm.
another. How do you help leaders when you see that in that leadership and they desire for you to coach? Because after all, you've been one of the top coaches. You've been recognized as a superstar coach. You've served on the coach advisory board. Come on, let's get down to the nitty gritty. You got a leader, his audio isn't matching his video. How do you
It's
coach him?
it's a hard conversation, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
talking honestly. It's not being in awe of the person that you're coaching. If somebody wants to surround themselves with a bunch of yes men and women, then that conversation will never get to the conversation that they need to hear. But getting to the conversation where do you really want to be well? Do you really want your life to be the life that you're asking from to bring in a coach? Because I'm sure you found this as well. Sometimes people will bring in a coach, but they don't actually they want to hear the things that they really need to hear. And I just was reading in my Bible the other day, and one of the things that Jesus asked, who's arguably one of the greatest leaders of all, who, if not the greatest leader of all, depending on, what you believe, but he said, "Do you want to be well?" And that to me is the greatest question that we can ever ask. And when you're coaching somebody of that high level, but because the reality is, it's just a human being, it's just a
Right.
person. Doesn't matter what your company is or how much success you've had. Do you want to be well? Do you want to have balance? Do you want to be the person that when you look in the mirror, when you're all by yourself and you like the person that's looking back at you, do you really want to have that balance? And then if you really do, then let's ask those hard questions and let's look at what are your deepest priorities, that when you're an old man or you're an old woman and you look back and you say, you know what, I had all this success, but I had so many failures in the things that really deeply mattered to me. Because when you're an old person, my parents are getting to be almost 90 years old, and the things that they're talking about now, the things that they're looking back on and cherishing as their health is starting to fail, as they're having some things that, naturally our bodies start to, no matter how good you take care of your body, it starts to break down because you're getting older. And the things that they're looking back on and the things that they're cherishing, those are the things that you want to, at this stage of our life, no matter what stage you're in, your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, you can, and beyond, you can look back at that, you can look forward at that time and think, what do I want to look back on and be proud of? And then come back to today, and then you reverse engineering, no matter where you're at today, no matter how much success you have and how much you've blown it in your private life or in your personal or your professional life. Now let's look at, what do I need to alter and change to get onto the track to living the life that I really want to live on by design, and not just kind of calling it in.
Well, that's where you and I just hit it off, because we both talk about a life by design, not by default. And
Yes.
in my book, I ask people to write their eulogy, as creepy as that sounds, and say, what do you want people to say when your time on this earth is finished? And when we know what that is, we know what we desire to be known as and what we
Yeah.
stand for, everything kind of falls into place. So we're kind of talking about identity here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what, with the people that I coach, I do something very similar, and that is I talk about your 90th birthday party. Because
Oh,
we have longevity in our family, and they live well into their 90s, my grandparents all did. And we had a 90th birthday party for my grandmother, and I can remember we all stood up and everyone told stories about her. We didn't
oh, wow.
wait until it was a eulogy. We celebrated her at her 90th, and the people in the community and the people in our family, we have a humongous family, and they stood up and they told stories about her all throughout her life. And I thought to myself, what do you want people to say? What are the memories you want to recall, and the things that
So
you have
good.
poured into people that you want them to have tucked into their lives, and now they're continuing it on. And so that's one of the exercises is, what do you want people to say at your 90th birthday party, should you be blessed to live that long? Now come back and become that person, because so many times we think that, you with the eulogy and me with the birthday party, and then you come back to today and the life they're living isn't on track to become that, even close. And so there can be that disconnect and the feeling of kind of that depression of, wow, I am just on a track of default. There are a lot of areas of my life I'm not intentionally living, or they might be a couple that are really on track. Like professionally, they're doing great, or with, their kids, they're doing great, but their marriage, not so great, their health, not so great, the way they are showing up in their community, not as great as they would like to. Then maybe they're putting it off till they're retired, but coming back and saying, you know what? You don't have to wait until you're retired till you invest in your community. You don't have to wait until you're retired until you finally look at your spouse and say, okay, now let's reconnect again. But there are a
Now that
lot
the
of people
kids are
who,
gone, let's figure out who each other
right.
is, right?
Right. And how many people honestly are doing that? And
Yeah.
there's no shame. It's just like, okay, let's take back the reins and not say we're too busy. We're all busy. But we're too busy not to take stock of what really matters to us, and create some space to put our priorities at the top of the list instead of tacking it on at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of in our thoughts as well, our identity. And I think it
Yeah.
comes out with how we talk to ourselves a lot. And I love in Genesis 3 where it says uh, that Satan is tempting. Now, take a chill pill if you're not religious, just go along with this. It's a good story.
Yes.
And he says, did God really say? And
Hmm.
he puts that little bit of doubt in Eve's mind.
Hmm.
And therefore, she doubts who she is. She doubts if she has enough. She doubts the fact that, well, maybe I do need to eat from that tree of life, right? To
Mhm.
actually be all that I can become. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you, Traci. There have been days in my life, especially when I was younger, that I doubted who I really was, what I could
Mhm.
really do. And somebody said something to me, and I would keep saying it over and over and over again to myself, to where I had to rearrange my thoughts and
Yes.
allow me to decide who my identity was, who I was going to show up as,
Mhm.
and know that as a child of God, that nobody could take any of that away from me, no matter what they said. Now, you wrote this book, and I love your book, The Real Life Marriage, Navigating Your Beautiful, Messy, one of a kind love story. And I
Yeah.
loved that messy one of a kind, because
Mhm.
we're all one of a kind. Let's
Yes.
talk about that for just a minute, into the
Yes.
marriage and how that relates with leadership.
Yes. Well, your marriage is happening right alongside of
Right.
uh, your leadership journey outside of your home. But really, who you show up as in your marriage is kind of the first place outside of yourself. You know, you're the first person that you lead, and then you're in a marriage. That's the closest. If you are a married person, that is the closest living, breathing relationship out of yourself and God. That's defining who you are, right? So let's talk about
Right.
identity first, peeling it back before marriage. If you're a person of faith, then what you believe foundationally about you and your maker, that is number one. And then from that becomes your identity, because what you believe about yourself comes from what you foundationally believe about who made you and what you're made to do in this world. And that shows up in what you believe about yourself. And then we have to learn of what we don't let into our mind and what we do let in, and all of that. From there, you enter into a relationship with another breathing human being.
Yeah.
And they're about as close as they can walk alongside of you on the planet
Right.
in this life, and they are typically so different than you are. I don't know about if you are different than your husband. We are about as different as two people can be. Are you guys the same or different?
No, no, we are very different. Tony is, he can go to a party and speak with one person all night long and love it. And I go to a
Yeah.
party, I want to meet everybody, right?
Yes. Yes. We always say that, like, Casey stands at the wall and will get into a really deep one-on-one conversation, and they will talk about everything in their whole life, and they will talk like the whole time. And I navigate to the center of what the buzz of what's happening in the room. So you and I are the same, and Tony and Casey are the same. But there are so many other things that are very different than the way that we're wired. But we are very much the same in a few things that are key, which is why we are drawn to one another. But
Right.
that difference in the early years of marriage made things a lot of friction between the two of us, that we were just like, we were raised very differently. We view life very differently, and at the first, that caused a lot of friction. And so I started looking for tools, because we loved each other, we wanted to stay married, but it was difficult to figure out a lot of things. We disagreed about a lot of same things over and over and over again, and it was that friction until we started reading books and decoding, like, our personality, our how we loved and showed love, and those all the kind of assessments. And we started finding that rather than friction, we actually covered his strengths, covered my weaknesses, my strengths covered his weaknesses,
Mm.
and we actually were a great compatible team. But had we kept kind of pushing and pulling, me trying to make him more like him more like me, and vice versa, it was just a lot of friction. And then we found out, like, wow, this is a really great rhythm. We are an incredible,
Yes.
powerful team together. And so, yes, there were a lot of messiness as we figured out how to use these marriage tools. Tools we didn't create, tools that we just found from all these other different books. I'm a reader. Like, I see all the books behind you. If I'm looking at my bookcase is across from me, and I've got another one around the wall. So tons of books. But I'm just like, if I don't have the answers, somebody else does. Somebody is smarter, better, faster than me, has found these answers, and I've got to find them. And that's what this book is, a collection of the tools. Like, hey, if we can make it work, and now we've been married 35, almost 36 years, if we've found these tools to work for us, we want to help other people find. And so I just distilled it down to do these things. This is what helped us find out about yourself. And we started a marriage ministry years ago, and we just see couples unlock. So we help couples before they get married, before the
Wow.
friction hits, when you're still in love and it hasn't worn off the gaga. And then couples who have been married for a while and they hit some rough patches. We're like, oh, wow, this is a little bit harder than we were thinking it was going to be. But come alongside of them as marriage mentors and say, like, okay, you might not have these tools. These tools helped us. Let us come alongside of you, help you learn how to use these tools a little bit, and then you're off and running and figuring out the messiness as you navigate the one of a kind.
You know, it's very interesting because you started with really willing to look in the mirror. How many couples that you have coached and or have worked with, you and your husband, have you found that they want to like point the finger at the other person? You know, if
Every
if
couple,
if they change,
including us at first. Let's be honest.
you know, it reminds me of that would be like going to the doctor's office and you're ill and he writes out a prescription and you take it and it says, this has my husband's name on it. And he goes, yeah, I figured if I made your husband better, you'd get better too.
But you know what,
And we're
Diana, that
going, no, no, no. We
it's
need to
true.
take the prescription ourselves. And
Ourselves.
sometimes you can't really read that prescription from inside the bottle. You got to get extra outside help. Yet,
Yes.
what do couples most misunderstand about building that strong and lasting marriage?
Probably that it's going to be a quick fix, and
Mm,
and that it's them, because they come. What are we? We see we have a lot of blind spots, and so we think we're doing our own thing. We're doing the best that we can. It's this other person who what's the first thing in the Garden of Eden? Like this, what did they say, Adam and Eve? This woman you put with me,
this woman,
Adam,
you
this
tricked her
woman,
and she,
Adam, this woman you put with me, Adam says. The first thing we say is it's the other person. If they would
yeah,
just try a little harder, if they would stop talking to me like this, if they would do this, then we would have harmony. And I think that's the first thing, is we think it's the, like you said, that the other person just needs to take the medicine, needs to try the tool. And so we come and say, look, we aren't on either one of your sides. We are on the side of your marriage, on the two of you staying together. So we first thing we ask is, do you believe that this marriage is worth saving? Do you
ooh,
believe
that's
that this is
good.
worth? And they both say yes, through tears sometimes. And so then we say, look, we're going to ask you to own your part of it, and just we're going to talk to both of you. So you don't have to worry that you need to make sure they're doing their part. And you just look at it and say, be willing to do your part. And so they start picking up the tools. And we say it's going to be clunky at first. And you're going to want to take the tools, yes, they're talking
Yeah.
tools and conversational tools, but you're going to want to imagine it's a hammer or a wrench and whack the other person over the head with it. Like, oh, what am I doing with these tools? I don't know what to do. But it's really about coming in and being willing for it to be a little messier before it gets neater, as you both are learning how to clunkily make your way through. But remember that you yourself said this is worth saving, and it's going to get messier first, but trust the process and trust us, and we'll come back
Ooh,
and
that's
we'll
good.
talk about how it works. And I'm amazed. I mean, not that it's magic. It's not magic. Our pastor will say so many times, most of us are like the rest of us. And so we'll say, if we can do it, we had
Yeah.
just crying breakdown fights in the early days of our marriage. And look, we've made it. And so you can do this too. And it's incredible to me at the end how they'll come back and say, we just had a couple we just ended 2 weeks ago, and as of this filming, and they said, through tears, we never we this was a last ditch effort. We came to you thinking that we was just about done. And we cannot believe how far along we are just 7 weeks later. Thank you so much for walking this path with us. And all it was learning how to talk to each other.
You know, communication is the biggest breakdown. I had Susan Scott as one of my coaches, and she wrote the book Fierce Conversations, Fierce
Mm,
Love, Fierce Leadership.
I love it.
And she's always said that communication is the response that you get, and you've got to have great communication.
Yeah.
No one really teaches us that.
No.
As a young kid in school, they don't say, hey, here's how you communicate when,
Yeah.
you're not feeling well or you need to find out what the other person is thinking. And when
Hmm.
I was writing a song once, Traci, and in that
You
lyrics,
did?
it said, and uh, I realize people are doing the best they can, and all of my suffering has been my judgment of them. And it's
Mm,
always so true to me that
wow.
people are doing the best they can, and we have to make some judgment calls, especially in leadership,
Sure.
because that doesn't mean you just keep putting up with somebody that's not doing the job. Yet it does mean that at first they are doing, and they're always doing the best they can. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a bad fit. Yet when it comes to a marriage, you got to be committed, more
Yeah.
and more so. But I want to switch a little bit because
Okay.
you've done so much with leadership. And we're in a new season of leadership, and
Hmm.
just it's about loss, it's about life, it's about growth. And I know you've been through some things where, why do you think, how do you think loss shaped the way that maybe you lead people today? Because we've all had loss of some kind.
For sure. Absolutely. I think loss for me, I had over a 20-year career in the same space. And that 20-year career, they just shut down the company, unbeknownst to me, one day. And I think, first of all, you go into shock that you don't even realize you're in shock. I think that's one of the first things, that term of shock. You think, oh, they're just in shock, but you don't know when you're in shock. You're just trying to
Right.
pick up and move forward and lead people through the shock of the trauma. And then it isn't until probably about a year or so later that you realize, I guess I was in shock. You just get up and you
Yeah.
leaders lead and you move forward and you get up every day and then you assess that season and you're like, wow, how I have very little memory of of that season. But I will say what it's taught me is so many things. I would not trade that
That's right.
that loss because of what I've learned about myself, what I've learned about leadership, and those things are, for one, when things are going really well, you just assume that they're going to go well the next day because you're on a roll, you've got
Yeah.
momentum, you've got your team, you feel like you've worked really hard for that, and what do? You grow the next day and you keep growing and the climb just keeps happening. Nobody plans for the drop off and you to start again when you're in your mid 50s. But for me, I felt like it gave me a fresh perspective on what building really is, what you deserve, using air quotes. I feel like it gave me a fresh perspective on other people who have lost. It gave me compassion. It gave me new eyes to see. Yes, I'm in my mid 50s, but I'm not climbing off into the sunset. I'm starting over again with a new kind of scrapper perspective, a fresh perspective, a hungry perspective. I'm not going off into the sunset. I'm starting again. I'm building again. And what I thought I'd build again, I'm I didn't turn out to be what I would build again. I just feel like everything is new. And so I feel like a new version of myself. And interestingly, you and I talked a little bit before we started this recording. You said like, "Oh, Traci, your hair is different. I like that you're growing out your hair." I wore a pixie haircut for over 20 years. And as soon as that career ended, I immediately started growing out my hair. And part of doing that is, who cares about my hair, honestly? It's nice that you gave me a
No, but
compliment.
it's a new identity. It's a
But
new way
yes,
of
I felt
being.
like that old version of myself died that day. And I felt like I needed, as I started to build and grow and say like, who am I apart from this? I you never want to be so connected to a career that your identity is wrapped up in a career. You always want to stay disconnected and fluid, sort of like okay, as a person of faith, who am I, God? Who am I separate? If this goes away, who am I still? Am I still staying? I'm still growing separate of that. And so then when it does go away, did I really do a good job of staying disconnected and fluid enough that like, okay, I'm still growing and I keep growing, but in a new space. So the hair to me is like that person changed and I needed to look different on the outside so that people can recognize and not expect to get from me the same version of me that they used to. And so yeah, I think that's an important thing. I feel so much of a different, renewed version of myself. I still don't know the fullness of that, but it's a good thing. And I feel open to new possibilities. I feel open to growth. I feel so excited about the future again in a new way than had I stayed in that old position and just kept going on the path that was before me. Now I feel like the path is wide open. The path is, I don't know what the path is, but that's exciting to me. And so I hope when people see me, it's a new representation of, hey, I am going to continue to lead. It's just going to be in a new space. It's going to look and feel differently, but it's going to be
Right.
taking everything that I've learned and it's going to be on this new path over here. And it's thrilling actually.
I love what you're saying because the identity, you can get hooked into that identity. You wake up one morning and you go, like, they shut down your company. You
Yeah.
wake up and you go, what do I do today? When you said, like, you were in shock and didn't realize it. I love, though, one of the things you said is because of your growth mindset. And I know that's who you are because I've known you for so many years. You love to grow, you love to learn, you love to experiment and do
Hmm.
experiences that are different to stretch your mind. And just the mere fact of a lot of people want to keep you here. Oh, I've learned everything from them that I can learn. And yet they're learning more, but they still keep you
Yeah.
here. And what you
Yeah.
said is don't keep me here. I'm still learning. I'm
Yeah.
still growing. I'm still going up. I have a new identity, even
Yeah.
though I'm Traci. So
Yeah.
let's look at this. How do you detach from the yoke of yesterday when it comes
Mm.
to leadership?
Oh, that's so good. Especially with social media, I will say.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. Yeah.
Because social media, I'll just say my past had to do with fitness and exercise. So let's just say every time I post something that has to do that's connected to exercise, they're the likes and the views go way through the roof. If there's anything in my new voice of talking about what I'm talking about.
Mm,
Now, people came to me for fitness and they came into fitness and I'm a mom of six. How did I stay fit? They were interested in that. And that is interesting, but that's a small part of the fuller part of what I believe in, like maintaining a healthy marriage as you build a business, staying present for your kids, even though you're a work at home and travel mom,
right.
having a presence in your community and in your faith community. All those things, wellness was one part of them. And it wasn't just fitness. It was about like, did I not just did I look healthy? Like, was I cheating the
Yeah.
system to starve myself to look a certain way? Did I learn how to eat healthy? Was I supplementing with healthy supplementation? Was all the things, was it healthy? Like, was I
Right.
detaching from my phone and having mental health and having all the things, not just a look of a healthy person or a fit person?
That's
All those
good.
kinds of things. Sabbath, having a day off once a week, like shock to the world. But people would start to ask me, what does your life look like on that side of things? But fitness was the door in. So when I start talking about the other things without the door in, people are like, whoa, 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 what is this that you're suddenly talking to me about these other things?
Yeah.
So what I'm finding is through my prayer life is when I start just when I shared before about health and wellness, people came in the door and that was what kicked off my business. So I'm going back to that, like, I'm going to go back and start just sharing freely again and just start collecting people new. Did I lose a whole bunch of people when I started talking
Yeah.
new? Yes. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with losing a bunch of people because my voice has changed and I will collect a new group of people in a new way. I have to stop. I'm going to stop looking at the likes and the followers and that. And I'm going to instead look at what kind of value am I adding? Where are the spaces that I'm showing up? And then truly beginning again. I can't start in my social spaces from that same place without expecting some attrition and then beginning again. So I'm letting that fall and then starting to rebuild again. So that's kind of what it looks like, is just serving where people will have me and listen to me and
So what are
letting
the
that build.
signs? What are the signs that maybe a leader has not yet moved on?
I guess maybe still clinging to talking about and clinging to the same old things
Yeah.
and not ever grabbing hold of something new.
Something
Maybe
new, something different. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe even some grumbling and holding grudges and some anger about the past and the people who took the past
That's
from them.
right.
I was determined to not be angry and not hold a grudge and end well with the previous company. They blessed my life and our family's life for a lot of
Yeah.
years. And I was not going to, they have every right to shut down the company if that's that arm of the company, if that is what they so determined to
Yeah,
do
they
for
own
their
the
purpose.
company. They get to
Yeah.
choose.
And I was not going to, after so many great years, decades of wonderful years together, I wasn't going to end poorly with them. I was going to end well with them and then start again. And so maybe some grumbling, maybe some grudge holding, and maybe some celebrating the past just a little and dragging the past along like it's your comfort blankie when we need to just kind of celebrate it as if it's the past instead of pulling it with you like it's still a part of your today.
You know, the past has made us who we are.
Yeah.
And that's the greatest part about it. And to give gratitude in all things. You don't have to give gratitude for all things, but give gratitude in all things. And
Yes.
what did I learn through that season? And what do I want to take forward with me? And what am I learning today? Because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, I'm still going to classes. I will always
Yes.
be going to classes. In fact,
Yeah.
I said the day I pass away, I really desire for them to find a book in my hand, right? That I'm still learning and I'm
That's
still
right.
going. And I know that with all the things that you do, and I just want to bring up some of these things because people wouldn't know this. You're the founder of the LifeStory Strategies, creator of the Growth Table, relationship guide, speaker, author, entrepreneur whose life work centers on helping people live by design rather than by default. And you've helped people grow in the areas of relationship, leadership, personal development, wellness, and intentional living. Now it goes on, and they can read your bio and that. How would they get in touch with you, Traci, if they wanted to follow you on social media? Where would they go?
I'm just Traci Morrow everywhere. Traci with an I and Morrow like tomorrow, not marrow like bone marrow. But I'm, yeah, wherever I am, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or just my website is just tracimorrow.com and it's easy to find me.
Okay, now being a person of faith, I want to end with this one question. What practices have helped you hear God's voice more clearly when everything around you is so noisy right now?
A practice that I have just begun this year, and that is taking 5 minutes of quiet. I set my alarm on my phone and I sit down or kneel down on my floor and I just say, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." And I quiet my mind of anything because a lot of times my prayer time is just me praying, but this is me just being quiet before God and asking Him, does He have anything to say to me? And I can't tell you how many things have come as a result of me just quieting myself in prayer and just letting Him speak to me. And sometimes I end in tears. Sometimes I end jumping up to scribble down a bunch of things onto a notepad or make notes in my phone. But that has yielded. I told my husband just the other day, I can't believe how much me just shutting up for 5 minutes before the God of the universe, and how that has yielded so much return. And he made some sort of a joke like, I told you, you just needed to be quiet a little bit more. But
Yeah, my
that's said
husband would
in
like that if I
that's
was
said
as
in
well.
jest. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay,
that would be it.
I said that was the last question, and this just came to me. How do people find joy in the Lord while they're still waiting for the answer? Maybe it's being said and they don't hear it. Yeah, how do they remain in joy through all of that?
I really believe it's just being in his word over and over. What I found, my word for the year is abide. I've got two bracelets here that
Oh,
say the word abide, and abide for me has meant just being in his word, because over and over again what we see is his character of
right.
he finding him in hard spaces, in any space on this planet. We were designed to be in community with him first and foremost. And when we do that, when we put time with him first, then the joy of the Lord is my strength. It really is. It being with him shows me, and being in his word reminds me from the beginning of time that no matter what happens to me, that he is doing something in me. And that is where my joy comes from, is that no matter what's going on in the exterior, God is doing something inside of me, and that he's not going to forget me. He's not going to let me go. I'm not the one person in the world that he created that he's going to forget. And so there's a book full of the history of him showing up for human beings who put him first. And so that I just determined that is going to be what marks my life, is that no matter what happens to me around me, I'm going to continue to put him first. And that brings me great joy. They say happiness is what is determined by your circumstances, but joy comes from being with the Lord and in spite of circumstance.
You know, it was interesting. Yesterday, I had the opportunity, my husband and I went to breakfast with Rabbi Jason, who is in the round table of the chosen. And
Oh,
we had heard him speak at church the day before. Of course, he
wow.
does believe in Jesus, and he wrote a book about how he was transformed by the Messiah. And
Wow.
it is so compelling. And he said something that I thought was very astounding that people just don't think about is he said, this is what I took away from it. These are not his exact words, yet you'll get it. You were born into a family. So when you were born into that family, do you feel like you're part of that family? And you would say what, Traci? Yes,
Yes.
you're right. And he said, so when you're born again, you are born into a family. So if you were born into a family and you feel like part of that family, then when you're born again, aren't you part of that family?
Mm.
And the answer is yes. And so he said, so if you're part of that family, then you're on Team Jesus. And Team Jesus doesn't have anybody on his team that he does not love, that he does not see as whole, as he has not given a gift that they can live out. And I'll tell you, I had so many questions for him. Of course, you know me, I love questions. We,
Yes.
for 2 hours, it was just questions and hanging on the words of the Hebrew language
Mm.
and uh, just all these different things, looking at the Bible differently from the Jewish standpoint and
Yeah.
how the Hebrew, every word, every letter, every
Yes.
number means something. And he
Yes.
took one number and we spent almost 30 minutes on all the different
Wow.
areas of the Bible and how to look at it differently. For example, and
Gosh.
we do need to end, yet I could do a whole thing on this one
Yes.
alone, is when when Moses brought the people out of Egypt and they were on the side and they needed to get across the Red Sea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the water parted. As a woman gives birth, the water breaks. When they went through that opening, which is the way a baby comes into the world, that
Wow.
when the baby gets on the other side, that and they are born into the world, they are a new being. So when the people left Egypt and they walked through the opening, and then the water closed up, like the womb closes up when a baby is born, that
Oh
now
my.
they are delivered, like a baby's delivered. They're delivered on the other side into a new world. And they have to get that identity. But the identity comes from what we believe, who we believe we are, and who we belong to. So I
Mm.
knew I just wanted to put that in. It was so great to meet with him. And I've got to
How
tell you, it's been
wonderful.
so great to meet with you and just
Thank
to have a
you.
conversation because
Yeah.
leadership is so important. Relationships are so important. I
Yeah.
trust all of you will pick up the book that Traci wrote, and I know you're writing another one now. It's Real Life Marriage, Navigating Your Beautiful, Messy, One-of-a-Kind Love Story. Look her up, learn about leadership. I know both of us sit on the John Maxwell Foundation board, and that help them navigate through things. You've helped John in many ways. That's how we met each other. We were
Yeah.
both in the inner circle many years ago with John, and we've become great friends. So thank you for being part of
Thank you.
Becoming More. And if you've liked this episode, well, subscribe below, because we'd love to bring you more people that will help you become more. Traci, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you for having me.